We got 3:01 on my clock, so I'm just going to jump in and introduce some of our speakers. We have, as you see on the screen, Randy Arsenault from IBM. Randy's one of the subject matter experts here at IBM, and Dr. Frank Lee, who really is one of the stellar gentlemen on the technical side of things. So we have honored to have them as part of our panelists. And starting us off, I want to thank the folks at Tectrade. Tectrade has been a partner I've known about for roughly 10 years. And a recent addition to their team is a guy named Jason Normanton. And Jason is the head of Tectrade's cloud organization. And the beauty of what Tectrade brings to the table from an IBM perspective is they have a really robust and mature Red Hat presence. And we all know that Red Hat is the industry leader in containers, and we'll get to some of that later in the content. But today's webinar is being hosted as a partnership with Tectrade and IBM. You may notice that Jason's not from Brooklyn, so you may wind up picking up a slight accent. He's actually across the pond and joining us from the UK. So, Jason, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. Randy, could you take me to the first slide? Thank you. So, yeah, this wouldn't be a presentation within the 21st century without having the ubiquitous cloud computing slide. So here we go. But the real point that I wanted to point out to you is we all know that the benefits of cloud. This falls definitely within what we call as platform as a service. So providing the entire environment is what we're going to speak to you about. And we do that to try and avoid some of the pitfalls and some of the compliance issues that can stand around that. Next slide, please, Randy. So what is the value proposition of containers? And it kind of came as a coming together of four great elements. I'll talk you through the left-hand side first. So the first thing that really allowed small composable pieces of architecture was an architecture pattern within development called microservices. So it's taking the huge big monolith on the top left-hand side there, the application that we all know that might access your SAP environment or might do some business intelligence or one of those beefy business apps that has lots of functions, and really breaking that down into small functional parts to really increase development times, make a more flexible type of architecture, and rather than having to scale out and up to make a larger instance as the load increases, with a microservices type architecture, you just increase the number of containers presenting that tier, and that way your architecture grows with you. When you couple that with infrastructure on demand and deployment as code capabilities, that gives you a really strong and powerful story within the hosting world around applications as code and declarative deployment of applications. If you could take me to the next one, please, Randy. And, what is a container? Well, basically, it's a way of accessing a host through a Docker daemon that provides all of the CPU and all of the resources that the container needs. And it's easy to deploy because we have things like source code repository and registries where we hold those images that we create. And it literally is that the command to start a Docker is run, and then the container name and enter. And it's literally that easy to start up the container. Next one, please, Randy. However, running the container is only the very start of that story. There's a whole host of ecosystem components out there. And you can see Red Hat OpenShift is listed within the paths supporting Docker. But really what it is it's taking all of these individual features, extending the core functionality of Docker and integrating a solution that you can take to production. Docker on its own is not production ready as a deployment and hosting solution if the application needs to do anything with any kind of clever. But also trying to select all of those different components. And if you could go to the next slide, please, Randy. Just to be able to deliver those microservice containers, which you can see in the middle band of the diagram, you need all of the elements that are around the side. So you need service routing, service discovery that says which container is where and on which host and which IP address and what service it's delivering. And it's knitting all of these additional components into the stack that is really where a lot of organizations start to fail, or it takes them a long time to select the right components. If you could press again, please, Randy. So here at Tectrade and CSI Group, we really looked long and hard at the container market, and we took all of the various elements into consideration. And the decision that we made and that we came out of the other side was we would let a distributor actually wrap all of those components together for us, and we would get at least 90% of all of the functionality that we needed through that core package. So when something changes, it's tested by Red Hat before it goes into their OpenShift package. We know that it's going to work whenever we upgrade that package because it's all been tested together. If we could move on to the next one, please. And that really brings us to what should be your major thoughts around containerization. It's more to do with the application migration. Whether you rehost, whether you refactor, whether you re-architect, or you rebuild, the platform should be capable of supporting you through each one of those stages to get to that microservice nirvana. And if we can go to the next slide, please. And we understand within any organization that that's going to be an iterative process potentially, especially if it's a very complex app that you're transforming. So there are some key steps there that as you move through. So from a data services based architecture to a service integration architecture, you might have a coarse-grained services architecture then before finally moving through to microservices. And from the third pillar onwards within those architecture designs, containers are there to support you. It's just as you move further to the right-hand side, you get more granularity and control over the solution. So sorry, final slide, please. Well, there may be one after this as well. So that's the power of the application architecture and the infrastructure. And that then enables the people and the culture to develop and to adopt agile methodologies, where you're not trying to create the full software product within the first release. You get quickly to market with a product that's viable, and then you add additional functionality onto that, which you deploy via microservices. And if anybody uses a fairly heavy-duty mobile app, that will definitely be the architecture that's following, where you get new release of functionality upon functionality over a fairly short period of time, which leads you to a culture of open source software, where you can build the applications that you need with the right components, and that DevOps mindset of continual deployment and continual creation. Next slide, please, Randy. So our goal here at Tectrade is to make you or allow you to sleep easily at night and not sit there worrying about the infrastructure. And if I could have one more click, please. With a proper architecture and tool set in place, your biggest issue should be with the application itself, the expertise that you bring to the table. You've designed that, you're working on that. You shouldn't need to worry about the underlying infrastructure. And that's where Tectrade, with their partnership with IBM and Red Hat, really feel that we can help you out.